Welcome, everyone, to the Firing the Man podcast. On today's show, we are joined by Nathan Hirsch. Nathan is an expert in remote hiring and e-commerce. He started his first e-commerce business out of his college dorm room and has sold over $30 million online. He built and exited FreeUp.com, a marketplace that connects businesses with pre-vetted virtual assistants, freelancers, and agencies in e-commerce. Nathan's most recent project is Ecom Balance, where his team focuses on e-commerce businesses selling on Amazon, Shopify, eBay, Etsy, and other marketplaces master their bookkeeping. Welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. Excited to be here. I think we timed this perfectly because we're supposed to get a windstorm in about an hour. So I think we'll be able to sneak this in.
Nathan, first things first, tell us a little bit about yourself and your path as an entrepreneur.
Yeah, so I've always wanted to be an entrepreneur since I was young. It all started when my parents made me get real jobs when I was 15 and on, and I was working for someone else. I worked at a retail store, like a rent-a-center called Aaron's. I worked for a meat packing plant back when I was a vegetarian, which was kind of interesting. I worked for Firestone, I did an internship there. So I had all these jobs, and I was working every summer, every winter, and I really just wanted to work for myself. So when I got to college, I started hustling. The short version is I started buying and selling people's textbooks to try to compete with my school bookstore. Got a cease and desist letter from my college telling me to knock it off or I would get kicked out of school. And that made me pivot towards Amazon. I had sold some textbooks on Amazon a little bit, so I was familiar with it. This was 2008, 2009. So the wild, wild west of Amazon before courses and gurus and PPC and all that stuff. So I got in really, really early, had a good amount of success. I didn't build a long-term brand, but I sold over $20 million from when I was 20 to 27-ish. And what it really allowed me to do is start FreeUp, a marketplace to help other e-commerce sellers hire. I'd hired virtual assistants and gotten pretty good at it, built virtual teams and built this platform connecting Amazon listers, Amazon PPC experts, Amazon virtual assistants, whatever, to these e-commerce sellers. And now there's all these e-commerce agencies out there and service providers. I like to think we were in that top group starting off, servicing Amazon sellers. And we got that to 8 figures in 4 years. We were acquired right before the pandemic. I know I'm going a little fast. We can kind of dive into whatever parts you guys want to dive into. But post sale, we built a company, Outsource School, which teaches sellers our systems and processes and how we hire really great people. So that's out there. And our newest venture, Ecom Balance, which is focusing on the finances and helping sellers really understand their numbers and make decisions based on their numbers. And just from consulting and going through due diligence and doing our own personal and business finances, that's kind of a huge pain point that we want to help solve. So that's kind of the short version, how I went from selling books to eventually baby products on Amazon. That was my Amazon business, to starting it and selling FreeUp, to now Outsource School and Ecom Balance.
That's great. So yeah, Nathan, a depth of experience. So before we dive into some of that other stuff, I'd like to circle back a little bit. So the name of the podcast is Firing the Man, and so you had mentioned you had entrepreneurial tendencies early on, and so but you had jobs, meat packing plant, all these jobs that you had. So when you went to from selling, and I really liked the cease and desist at the college, so like hustling books. So that's pretty cool. Whenever you decided that, I'm just gonna not go and work for anyone else, and I'm just gonna go and do my thing on Amazon. Was there pressure from your family and friends? What fears did you have, and how did you overcome those?
Yeah. So my parents are both teachers, or they're retired now, but they were teachers while I was growing up. And so they always had the mentality, you get good grades, you go to college, you work, you have a retirement plan. They were always very financially savvy in terms of saving and investing and stuff like that. And then you retire and you enjoy life. And that's kind of the game plan. And they always pushed me to do well in school. They pushed me to have these jobs and to save and all of that. But I think everyone kind of grows up trying to rebel against their parents in some way. So you always want to do the exact opposite of what your parents want you to do. And I remember going to these jobs, and my Firestone internship, it was a great internship. I was making $12 an hour, which was unheard of for a 16-year-old back in 2009. And it was this great opportunity. My parents were so proud of me. And I just hated every second of being there. I didn't like being bossed around. I didn't like being told what to do. I didn't like having to wake up early to get there. And every second I was there, I didn't want to be there. And when I got to school, I pretty much told my parents that I'm going to be quitting this internship within the first 2 years. I originally told them, I was like, hey, like all these student loans and stuff, can I just like take this money and start a business with it? And they shot that down pretty quick. So it was kind of up to me to prove to them that I could start this business. And even fast forwarding, when I quit that internship, my parents definitely didn't want me to do it. They wanted me to go the safe route and have the job and have the benefits. I had some job offers graduating college. I had this Amazon business and job offers, and they really wanted me to take the job and maybe do Amazon on the side and have that security. But once I made the decision, my parents have always been very supportive of anything I do. They made it very clear I'm not allowed to move in, or I wasn't allowed to move back in with them after college. So as long as I didn't end up homeless on the street and I could pay my own bills, they were good with it. But it definitely took them a little bit to come around to the idea of me not having a real job.
Nice. Yeah, that's a great support system. You know, it's huge to have people close to you that's supportive. One other thing I'd like to get into is so recently, 2021, I've moved to a plant-based diet. So when you said you were a vegetarian and you worked in a meat packing plant, how was that experience?
Yeah, so I'm actually a vegetarian now. I was a vegetarian in high school, and then I stopped in college because it was just impossible to be a vegetarian in college. And then now I'm a vegetarian again. So it was this meat store that was right by my house, and I was lucky that I didn't actually have to like touch the meat or anything like that. I was more of like a cashier, like managing people. It was weird, but yeah, I mean, if I could do it over again, maybe I wouldn't work there. I'm curious why you do it. I do it more from like a health standpoint. I feel healthier. I just have more energy. I don't really miss meat. It was never kind of a big part of my diet, but it's kind of weird, like the jobs you take when you kind of need money. At the time, I wanted to buy my first car, and my parents always wanted to teach me lessons that I had to pay for everything myself, whether it's video games, a car, whatever it is. So I was out there working as much as possible and taking whatever job would take me as a 16-year-old with no experience.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, jobs are, you just learn as you go and figure things out. But to answer your question, yeah, I just switched to a plant-based diet recently, and I love meat. I hunt. And so, when I hunt, I donate the meat, but I do it for health reasons as well. So a documentary one night changed everything for me. So, yeah. So David, back on course, over to you.
Yeah, all good. So we talked about it a little bit at the beginning, but I want to dive into FreeUp. And for the listeners that are not familiar with that, I can tell you, I hired my first VA on FreeUp and use it all the time. It's a huge part of our business, and it is not a small company. And so, can you walk us through that, starting with the aha moment, right? From the inception of that company all the way through exiting?
Yeah. So at the time I was selling on Amazon. I think we maxed out at $5 or $6 million a year, and Amazon was getting harder. They were changing algorithms on us. We were drop shipping from other manufacturers, and some of them were going to Amazon. So we kind of saw the writing on the wall. I think it scared us a little bit to be relying on Amazon. I think having our own brand, or the idea of owning our own brand, our own website, was very appealing, instead of waking up one morning and not knowing what Amazon's going to tell you, and they're just in complete control across the board. So we were brainstorming what business do we start? How can we start our own brand? And we had all these Amazon VAs that we had trained, that we had found that we were using more during busy season and less when it wasn't the holidays. And up until that point, and this is the newbie entrepreneur in me, I hadn't really networked with other people in the Amazon industry. I'd sold $1 million on Amazon, but I was the only Amazon seller that I knew. And I think that came from a mindset of scarcity, where people were going to steal my ideas or hurt my business or whatever. And so I started just networking and talking to other e-commerce sellers, and hiring came up as a big pain point for them. And FreeUp really started off with, hey, I've got graphic designers, I've got listers, I've got customer service people. You tell me what you need, shoot me a Skype message, shoot me an email, hop on a phone call with me. I'll provide them and I'll just bill you for their hours and I'll mark it up a little bit. And that's really how it got off the ground. And we didn't have any software. There was nothing holding it together. We had a Google sheet that we would keep track of everyone's hours and what VAs we were attaching to different people. And what I think that the aha moment was, we had done really no marketing up until that point. We had maybe 10, 20 clients that we were providing VAs, and all of a sudden phone calls started coming in. And I remember that this one call is this person that had been in a conference in China and had heard about FreeUp, and I had never been to China. She had just been talking to one of my customers, and we ended up creating an affiliate program based on that, where any freelancer you referred, you would get 50 cents for every hour that we billed to them forever. The new owners have tweaked that a little bit, but that's really what exploded it, because then these initial 20 customers said, hey, I can save money on my billing if I just refer other people and I'm happy with the service. And then all of a sudden going on podcasts and finding partners, and all these people wanted to work with us, not only because we had the affiliate program, because we started to get a good reputation. And then from there, it was, hey, we need a software. I can't be running this company on Google Docs and matching it up. And so we took one of these developers that we really liked from our Amazon business that had built some repricing software, and he built what we called Time Clock, which was very basic at the time. Freelancers could log in and log out and record their time, and everything else was still manual. And we just started making more and more upgrades. And I started to go out on the podcast scene, and that's really how we took off.
Very nice. Very nice. I love that story, and boy, what a wonderful company that you created. And one follow-up to that, I have noticed a trend where somebody will start as an Amazon seller, and they will be very successful in that. And then they will transition into a service-based business that services Amazon sellers. And that's a path that you've taken. And so, why is that? Why do you think that happens?
So the way that I've heard it, and I'm not sure I 100% agree with this, but a good way to kind of think about it, I guess, is there more money in digging for the gold, or is there more money in selling the shovels to the people that are digging for the gold? And it's a good question. I mean, there's a lot of people on Amazon that are crushing it. There's a lot of service providers that have kind of found their niche there. Like I said, I think I was one of the first 1,000 Amazon sellers, and I think I was one of the first 1,000 like real Amazon service providers, and it's kind of exploded since then. And maybe I'm completely wrong about that, but I mean, whenever there's an industry of people that are making good money, like on Amazon, there's a variety of services that those people need, and if you can find a niche in there, you can build a really good business. And the other side of that is just that whole building the brand thing. There's a lot more power in building a brand of whatever service you're offering than there is a building a brand on Amazon. Although I will add to that, from the time we started FreeUp to now, the whole building a brand in e-commerce is a lot more prevalent. When we started on FreeUp, it was a lot more people selling on Amazon, and now it's a Shopify and building a brand and building an email list. And we've come a long way since then. But there's definitely something to be said about having more control over your business than just hoping Amazon doesn't change the algorithm on you one day.
I like that analogy, the shovels and the gold. I also think that as entrepreneurs, like, we don't have any shortage of ideas, and we see opportunities different than I think other people. And I think that, but yeah, that is a huge trend. Interesting. So as we kind of wrap up the FreeUp, part of your journey, do you have any outsourcing or hiring tips for someone that's just starting out, or they're getting overwhelmed? What should they do?
Yeah, well, one of the things that we teach a lot in outsource school is setting expectations. And that's, to me, that's where most people go wrong. Like we just hired a bookkeeper for Ecom Balance, and we set all the expectations from schedule to pay to future bonuses to future raises to the fact that they have to be exclusive for us and they have to drop to other clients. Like, we don't leave any stone unturned. We want to be 100% on the same page, because the last thing we want to do is invest time, energy, and money into someone and then realize they can't work the schedule they need, or there's something that we didn't account for. And we have a really solid checklist at Outsource School that we encourage people to put their VAs through. it's this extra like 20 minutes of time that's just going to save you hours and hours and thousands of dollars of time and hassle in the future. And there's obviously other parts of hiring as well, but that expectations is where most people who are hiring for the first time go wrong.
All right, now let's pivot a little bit and talk about Ecom Balance. Where was the aha moment there, and talk about building that company?
Yeah, so I think as a young entrepreneur running an Amazon business, we didn't really know finances. We had to slowly learn how to do it and do it properly and understand our numbers. And with FreeUp, we really hit the ground running with it. We had clean books from day one. We hired a great bookkeeper. We were on top of billing clients and charging freelancers and every single possible KPI. And that really helped us during due diligence. For those of you that listening that have sold a company, there's a trust factor. And one of the ways you build trust with someone buying your company is you understand your numbers, and the numbers that you're telling them on those initial phone calls match up with the numbers that are actually on the documents and in QuickBooks and or Xero or whatever you use. And that really helped us. And I remember going through due diligence, and it's a very long process. The buyers would send over 25 questions, but we would answer them so quickly. And I remember them telling us that no business they had bought was responding so fast. And most of these due diligence questions are finance or numbers related. And we just had all these at our disposal ready to go. So that really helped us. And that was a learning opportunity for us. Post FreeUp, running Outsource School, one of our most popular trainings inside Outsource School is our bookkeeping formula, which shows you how to have a VA do your books every single month. So that was popular. And then we also started doing consulting, which we learned pretty quickly. We didn't love being consultants, and we love building businesses more than that. But the common theme among all these e-commerce businesses and e-commerce service providers that we would consult with is they didn't know their numbers, so we couldn't make decisions based on their numbers. So we would spend the first month or two revamping their bookkeeping, revamping their finances, revamping the reports they were getting, meeting with them to go over their numbers and understanding every little thing. So that kind of gave us the idea of, hey, can we do this and actually provide a bookkeeping service to e-commerce sellers and people in the e-commerce space? So we started interviewing e-commerce sellers. This is kind of how we start most of our businesses. We did this at FreeUp too, where we would just learn everyone's pain points. And we would just ask people, what e-commerce bookkeepers do you know? Where do you struggle with your numbers? All of that kind of stuff. And we just learned what that perfect bookkeeping service would look like. And I think we both realized that there was a market for it. And all the past ideas we had about finances, we didn't love. I mean, we take a lot of pride in our personal finances and stuff like that, but we didn't want to like sell a personal finance course or all these other ideas we were floating around. So we decided to launch this bookkeeping service for e-commerce sellers. We hired a team. We snagged this great head bookkeeper right here in Denver, Colorado. She was a seller herself. We got her from a retail company. We started building processes. We launched a beta where we're giving out some free bookkeeping to, if people would let us go through and give us time and patience to build out our systems and tweak things and figure stuff out. And now we've kind of gotten through that and hit the ground running. But it all kind of stemmed from going through due diligence and getting into other people's books and making changes and kind of the 10 years of being an entrepreneur and understanding how important knowing your numbers and making decisions on your numbers really is.
Yeah. So Nathan, I think it's incredible that, your background, you have a wealth of experience in e-commerce and now you're kind of marrying that up with bookkeeping and then providing that service. I think it adds a huge value. Having someone with experience in that field. A horror story of mine when I first started, 5 years ago, I hired like a brick and mortar like CPA and said, hey, I'm doing this online business thing. And he was just kind of like looking at it like, okay. And then fast forward 6 months, I had to go and find an e-commerce bookkeeper. And then they had to unwind all the stuff that he did. And so, yeah, horror story. So I guess my question to you is, whenever someone's first starting out, in e-commerce, should they get a bookkeeping service day one, or can they wait 6 months or a year? What is that timing for that?
Yeah, and I had the exact same experience. You made me think of the first CPA I fired, which luckily I've had a great CPA for 10 years, and Ecom Balance does bookkeeping right now, not tax. But yeah, he just didn't know e-commerce, and it created a mess, and it wasted a lot of time and money and effort, and we had to redo everything. So it's funny we got there. So here's kind of my mentality. when there's certain things you want to get off your plate if you're serious about being an entrepreneur, because most entrepreneurs are only good at like 1 to 3 things. And especially Amazon wise, like you might be good at sourcing products or good at PPC or good at creating listings or whatever it is. Chances are you're not good at bookkeeping. And any time that you spend doing bookkeeping, one, it's pulling you away from the stuff you should be doing that actually grows your business and increases profits and all of that. But 2, you're probably not doing it right. And it's probably just going to have to get redone later. I know that was my first experience when I was doing books for my Amazon business. I was a 20-year-old. I had no idea what I was doing. And what happened was 2 years later, I just had to pay someone to redo it anyway. So there are people that are maybe doing it on the side, or that have a limited amount of funds and they know what their funds are and they can't afford that bookkeeping service. But for the most part, whether you're hiring ecom balance, or you're hiring some VA to do it or whatever it is, it's one of those things you want to get off your plate early so you can focus on other things. And you also don't want to be in that habit where you're just waiting until the end of the year and then you're doing it all and passing over to your accountant. You want to be getting the numbers at the end of every month. You want to know, hey, did I lose 10 grand last month? Did I make 10 grand this month? If I have 5 different SKUs, is this one profitable or is this one losing money? You can't make business decisions just by looking at what's in your bank account and cash coming in. You have to actually see income statements, balance sheets, cash flows. And if you're not doing that every single month, or you're spending 5 to 10 hours a month putting it all together, those are things that are going to hold you back as an entrepreneur. That's my opinion.
Yeah, definitely agree. And so David is actually a CPA, and so it was one of the things where is like you said, like you can either spend your time on one thing or the other, and so having especially a CPA that's an entrepreneur. And so like, you don't want to be doing this, you have to be doing 2 or 3 other things. So it's interesting. David, go ahead. Did you have a question?
Yeah, absolutely. So one question that I have for you is on how to use financial statements. So there are probably some listeners that have a bookkeeping service right now, and they get their P&L and they look at net income and they either smile or frown. What are some things that, as someone is growing and scaling a business, what are some things that they can look at or glean decision useful information from their financial statements?
Yeah, great question. And this is kind of where I think me not being a bookkeeper myself brings a unique perspective to ecom balance. Because, and David, I'm sure you've seen this, where the CPA and the bookkeeper sometimes speak a completely different language than the entrepreneur, and the entrepreneur doesn't get the information that they need to actually make decisions. And I think that's part of what we can do at ecom balance, is making sure the entrepreneur is getting only the information they need to make decisions. So in terms of those reports, yes, you got the income statement, the balance sheet, the cash flow. One of the things that I like to look at is trends. What's going on month to month? One thing I learned back at Firestone is every year they were comparing today with the exact same day last year. And that might be a little crazy in e-commerce, but you can do it month to month. I know. So today, when we're filming this, is the 15th, that we just got our income statement for my 2 companies from the previous month. So the month ends, and within 10 days, we gave our team a little bit of extension this month because we're doing some stuff. We get our reports, and then we're seeing, hey, how did expenses look compared to last month? For e-commerce, you look at cost of goods sold. For different revenue streams, if you're selling on Amazon and Shopify and eBay, how did each one compare to the previous month? And how did it compare to last year? This is your third busy season, your third Black Friday, Cyber Monday. You want to be able to compare how did that look to go along with, hey, are your expenses going up even though your sales are going up? Are you able to go have expenses go up at a slower pace? These are a lot of those comparing and looking at trends has to be part of it, not just saying, oh, I made 20 grand this month. Great. Like, let's move on to the next task.
Yeah, no, that's huge. I, like David mentioned, every month we get our statements in, and kind of it should be a great month. It should be a bad month, but you never really know until you have those documents, and then you're looking at them, and then, just like you mentioned, Nathan, that you have you can make better business decisions when you have the data versus when you're just operating blindly. So one other thing here. You mentioned, does ecom balance, do you guys handle like all the major marketplaces, Walmart, Amazon, Shopify, eBay, and how does that, how does your team, get all of that information and manage all of that in your statements?
Yeah, so we do handle all of those. We also work with like agencies and people that are selling e-commerce but are in the space. We've got a few non-e-commerce clients as well. There's tools out there that you really have to use. A2X is a popular one. We like one called Cinder that connects to all platforms. They connect to like WooCommerce and a few that A2X doesn't. Honestly, eventually, Ecom Balance is going to be building our own tools that'll just be included. If you're a client of Ecom Balance, it'll be in there. We have some work to do on our end there. But I mean, what you're alluding to and what a lot of people go wrong is they'll just take the deposit that's in their bank account and consider that their sales, when really that's net sales after a lot of different Amazon fees and stuff that's going on there. So you need to actually use a tool to pull in those transactions, or there's a manual way to go through Amazon reports, which I don't necessarily recommend. But you need to be making sure that you're getting the actual real numbers and not just the net that's going into your bank account. And every platform is a little bit different. Amazon is the most complicated one, but that's different than WooCommerce. It's different than Shopify. And the first thing we do when we onboard a new client is obviously know what marketplaces they're on and seeing, hey, do we need Cinder for these different platforms? If someone's doing like a very low volume in some platform, you might not need it. But you really need that in this day and age. And it also helps with automation and helps our team move faster and get more accurate numbers.
Very nice. Well, anything else we want to dig into on Ecom Balance?
Yeah. And so you guys kind of mentioned something to me. When you really understand your numbers, it's when you work a month in your business and you have a really good sense of what that income statement's actually going to look like. And I'm sure you guys have been there. Like you guys just completed a month. It's not like you get an income statement and it's just blowing your mind. Like, how do these numbers exist? Like, where do these numbers come from? Like, you have some kind of relevant idea of what's going to happen just based on doing it month in and month out and knowing your numbers and looking at past reports and being through a past busy season and all of those things. And that's kind of the point that where you really understand your numbers. And yeah, there might be like a surprise here, or your expense went up, or maybe your employees like worked a little overtime, whatever it is. But to me, like, you have to understand the numbers of your business. If you're talking to someone, and I'm sure you've seen this, David, as a CPA, when someone walked in your office and they're telling you about their business, they need to know exactly what's going on, and it should match what actually you see when you dig into those QuickBooks. It's very hard to run a business when you don't understand the numbers. It's the blood, the life of your business, and everything else from the marketing to the sales to all the stuff that's a little bit more sexy to entrepreneurs out there. It's all based around the numbers. If you don't understand it, it's very tough to do everything else.
Very nice. Very nice. Now, one thing I want to take a step back and talk e-commerce industry more broadly, and to kind of set the stage for this question. In my hometown, the barber, he was the guy that everyone went to gossip. He kind of had like the inside track on what was going on in town. And I have always felt like either a bookkeeper or those involved in the bookkeeping industry who like can see behind the scenes, in terms of what's actually working, like on paper. I'm always interested to ask people in this industry, what do you think is where are there opportunities in the next 3 to 5 years in this industry? What seems to be working and what may be dying?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I'm not sure if I'm the best to predict the future. But I think we've seen like the Thrazios of the world who are buying up all these Amazon businesses. And I know a lot of people that are kind of in between. Do I sell? Do I keep going? And to me, I'm super curious how that plays out. You have these huge funds buying up companies in masses. And I know a buddy of mine who I actually play poker with on Wednesdays, I'll see him tonight, works for Thrazio. And they kind of, and I don't want to speak for him, but I know they kind of factor in that a certain percentage of these companies they buy are going to do really well. A certain percentage of them aren't going to do that well. A certain will kind of stay the status quo. And there's an economy of scale aspect of, can they create the right systems and processes that are going to work across the board, from PPC to bookkeeping to listing optimization, all the stuff that Amazon sellers do. And how successful these gigantic funds are I think is going to decide a lot of the future of e-commerce. And I think a lot of people have this given that these companies are just going to succeed and crush it and that everything's going to go well. And I'm not predicting their demise, but things don't always work out the exact way that people think they are. So I think that's one big piece of it. I think growing a brand, which we kind of already touched upon, I don't necessarily need to go over, is huge. The companies that have a following, have a community, have a good email list, have influencers promoting them, those are the ones that are crushing it. And then the other trend, which I'm sure you guys know, are just the pay to play. Like by this point, if PPC is not a big part of your business, you're going to start missing out to people. Amazon's focused on it. The days of me selling on Amazon and throwing a product up there and getting it to sell are a way of the past, especially with Amazon cracking down on review manipulation, although they've been saying that for a while now. I think all those are kind of the factors that at least I'm following over the next few years.
Very nice. Very nice. I always like to, you're the barber of the e-commerce industry. And so good to get the insight there. So anything else before we get into the fire round?
So one other quick question. So Nathan, like David mentioned, you've got a lot of insight with, I like to call it peeking behind the curtains. And, my bookkeeper and I have some interesting conversations before. And so this is another question there, not asking you to predict the future, but more of like trends and kind of what you and your team are seeing. Like we've had a lot of stuff in the last, I would say 12 to 18 months that is an anomaly of sorts, right? And so with shipping skyrocketing, with more competition, with everything going on, have you seen any trends like behind the curtains on the books with any of this and what's going on there?
Yeah. So predicting inventory and predicting cash flow are just 10 times more important than they were even 2 years ago. I mean, the people that we work with that are on top of their stuff, they know exactly how much cash they're going to have during slow seasons. They know what they're going to make during busy season. And same thing with inventory. I mean, you have to get those predictions right. You have to be able to order inventory to the right place. There's people that had a worse busy season they thought because they sold out or their inventory didn't show up on time. And who knows how that kind of resolves itself over the next years. But the people that I've seen that are struggling compared to success, it pretty much came down to inventory and cash flow predictions.
So you mentioned cash flow, and that's something that I think a lot of entrepreneurs, especially if they're doing a good job in scaling quickly, are going to run into some issues. And so to any of our listeners that may be running into this, are there any tools or resources out there that help map out cash flow, especially for an Amazon business? Because the payout structure is weird, and you got PPC, and any resources or suggestions there?
Yeah, I mean, there's a bunch of tools like Chelsea Cohen has an inventory tool, and she's great in the e-commerce space. I'm not remembering the name of the tool off the top of my head. Sorry, Chelsea.
SoStocked.
So thank you. Yeah. We're working on creating add-on services for both as part of e-com balance. It's definitely a work in progress on our side, and we're lucky enough that these are clients that I knew from FreeUp that were e-commerce sellers that kind of have their own really good processes that we're able to go in and make improvements on, and hopefully help other sellers with similar stuff. So yeah. And I mean, cash flow is an imperfect science, as you guys know. Inventory management can be an imperfect science as well. And what works now might not work in 6 months, depending on how everything goes. So it's definitely something we're focused on, and we know it is important, and there's different tools out there depending on what you need.
Cool. So Nathan, before we get into the fire round, so for all the listeners that are out there, who would be a good fit for Ecom Balance, and who should be calling you and your team?
Yeah, I mean, if you're in the e-commerce space and you want to have a better grasp on your numbers and you want on-time automatic books every single month, like clockwork, that are clean and accurate, we'd love to chat. You can go to Ecom Balance and book a call right on the site. Yeah, I mean, we're looking for people in the e-commerce space that are willing to give a newer company a chance. I mean, obviously, we haven't been doing bookkeeping for 10 years or anything like that yet, but we do have a track record of hiring great people and building good processes. And if you want to be a part of that and get first dibs on a lot of really cool stuff we're creating and have us take care of you as one of our initial clients that we take a lot of pride in, similar to how we took care of the initial FreeUp clients back in the day, we'd love to chat with you.
Awesome. Very cool. So if you're listening to this and you need a new bookkeeper or you need a bookkeeper, give Nathan his team a call. All right. So we're ready for the fire round, Nathan?
Let's do it.
All right. What is your favorite book?
Yeah. So I was thinking about this before and you sent me the questions. I have a lot of favorite books. One of my favorite that I go back to is Tools of Titans by Tim Ferriss. It's the book that most people know him for is a 4-Hour Work Week, but Tools of Titans is essentially his podcast. He took all the best episodes and each episode is a chapter. So he'll talk to different people in the health and wellness space, the business space, the finance space, and just a lot of really good tidbits. I'm a big fan of reading about people that are successful and trying to see what I can take from that. Like recently I read Will Smith's book, which is pretty much his rise to stardom for nothing. And I learned a ton, even though I'm not an actor and I don't plan on going into acting. There's certain things that you can take away from books like that. And I always want to learn from the best. So Tools of Titans just had a lot of great stories from a lot of great people in one place.
Awesome. Great book. Great book. What are your hobbies?
Yeah, so I'm a big sports guy. I play softball and flag football. I work out daily. I know we were talking about like being a vegetarian. I've got a gym in my basement. I just moved to Colorado, so I do hiking and a lot of outdoor stuff. Hang out with my friends and dogs and all stuff there. Yeah, that's kind of it. One cool thing that's probably gonna take up a lot of my time going forward is we just got approved to be foster parents. So I feel like my wife and I have been fortunate to grow up in a very supportive family. Even though neither of us grew up like rich or wealthy or anything like that, we have had a supporting family, which is a big thing a lot of people take for granted. So hopefully we can get some kids and let them stay at our place and take care of them and provide them a good supporting atmosphere and stuff that they didn't have before and help some people out. And that's something that we're going to be really focused on going forward.
Yeah, that's incredible. Congrats, by the way, too. So that's really cool.
Thank you.
What is one thing that you do not miss about working for the man?
Oh man, so many things. So I used to have a boss that would just stress me out all the time. Like every single second I would mess up, I would get called into his office. I would get yelled at if I was in front of a customer. So, I mean, that the part of just being talking down to or having someone who just feels like they have this weird power over me, that I could do without.
All right. Last one. What do you think sets apart successful e-commerce entrepreneurs from those who give up, fail, or never start?
So for me, I'm a big proponent of consistency. I mean, I think that's the biggest thing that's had the most impact. I don't do like huge projects where I'm just working 20-hour days and I'm just accomplishing tons every single day. Like if you look at what I accomplished like today, like I'm going to do a podcast, I'm going to chip away at a project, I'm going to reach out and connect with a few people, I'm going to meet with my team. It's small, consistent actions that you're doing every single day. And like podcast outreach and partnerships is a perfect example of that with FreeUp and doing it now with Ecom Balances. Every day I would reach out to 5 blogs. Every day I would reach out to 5 podcasts. Every day I would reach out to 5 influencers, and 4 to 5 of them would reject me or ignore me or respond to me 2 months later or whatever it is. But when you're consistently doing it over and over and over and over, eventually you make progress and you get to be known in a space. You get to be looked at as an expert. And I think a lot of people give up on that consistency.
Okay. Yeah. Excellent advice. David, you want to close out the show?
Yeah, absolutely. Nathan, how can people get a hold of you and your team at Ecom Balance?
Yeah, so I'm super easy to contact. Nathan Hirsch on any social media channel. You can go to ecombalance.com. You can book a call with me there. You can check out Outsource School and everything we have going on there. My team is super easy to contact. They're awesome. They're nice. They were trained by me. I'm easy to contact as well. And yeah, appreciate you guys having me on and thanks for the support.
Very nice. And we'll post links to all that in the show notes. But Nathan, wanted to thank you for being a guest on the Firing the Man podcast and looking forward to staying in touch.
Yeah, thanks so much. It was a lot of fun.
Thanks, Nathan.